Hello, and welcome to this short video on citing research and other materials. One of the more important issues in modern research is the pace of change. At one point, a major development in science would take years. The identification of DNA and role in the function of life took decades. The Human Genome Project took 20 years. The artificial yeast chromosome took 15 years. Drug development takes about 10 years. Clearly, there is a pattern here. Major developments are happening at a quickening pace, and this bears on how you cite research, and more importantly, what you cite. This leads to the first issue. How far back should you go when citing research? Unlike wine and spirits, younger, newer research is not necessarily the best, nor are older sources. There is a golden period of useful information. Most research should be 5 or less years old. If it is from a highly fluid field with fast turnover, such as biology, chemistry, and foundational research, sources should be even newer. This will often be months old in larger fields, and at a stretch you'll be looking at 4 or 5 years in niche topics. The reason for this is simple. Newer research refines the mechanisms, findings, and conclusions of past research. Even methods can be changed from month to month if problems are identified or novel adaptations are made. A good example of this in practice is the national census of most countries. It grows with the needs of the country and the technology available. The results are both refined and the collection is improved. An improvement of methodology and results. These allow better conclusions. It is also why it needs to be updated every few years. There is a large pool of new data and an update to the existing data that needs to be made. In the mentioned fields, new chemical interactions, compound creations, genetic pathways, and more follow the same rationale. This is why you need the newest possible original sources of information. These findings may shine doubt on older research. This then leads to looking for a pool of evidence. On the other side of this coin lies the possibility of new research showing an anomaly or outlier. The newest data may not yet be supported by other findings. It may not yet have been subject to periods of criticism by other academics. The Seralini scandal is a good example of this process. The Seralini scandal involved an article that was published, but after a time, other researchers identified problems. After quite a number of these were identified, the paper was eventually retracted. This took time, and so the earliest exposure the paper received was not subject to the due process of academic criticism. Therefore, this paper, which was fundamentally flawed, was exposed and people were able to access it. Research based on its findings was therefore also fundamentally flawed. This is why you are looking for that golden time frame, where it has just enough exposure that it's cutting edge, but not so old as to have become outdated and obsolete. This leads to the second issue, exceptions to the rule of age. Some fields are obscure. They do not have a wide range of contributions, and this bottlenecks the supply of new information. As a result, the volume of information becomes weighted in such a way that the distribution is skewed, with a very, very small amount at the current point in time and a substantial body increasing in volume in the past. When this happens, you need to look at older sources. This has been the case in some of these videos. The other option being that some fields are not updated. A good example of this is research into photosynthesis. The process is well known, and there is little interest, which led to the first issue and investigation. The second problem then develops. Without updates through novel findings or disagreement, the field stagnates and only older citations are left. These will often eventually enter common usage, such as encyclopedias and web references. Asking yourself questions from these two issues should dictate which sources you use. The first speaks to its integrity and refinement. The second speaks to how much debate there is over the findings. Asking yourself, has this been in the open and to the public for long enough that any issues should have been identified? And is it still within that golden time frame? The second being, if it is an older article, is there still a debate on this topic? And if not, how well can I rely on the information from this article? Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it'll help you in looking at future publications and deciding whether or not the content of that particular article, webpage or similar is worth considering and how much weight you should give to its contents. Please post any comments, questions or suggestions you may have below.